As a creative aspect, TV is one of the best things that we do as a species. Along with music and film and books, they bring out the best creative of all of us. They entertain and they bring so much joy to many. They invoke emotion and enable us to feel things that we bury sometimes deep down. That's what this podcast is for. Welcome to A Million Little TV Shows. This is what I call the breakdown while I break down. Each week I will go through a different TV show, a different season of that TV show, and different episodes of that show. And I will break down not only emotions, but I will break down stories from my life, and let you know why these TV shows mean so much to me, and why I believe that they are some of the most important shows out there. This podcast is here to highlight a lot of smaller TV shows, or TV shows that don't really get a platform, because we know of a bunch of TV shows that get a multitude of different podcasts. Ted Lasso, Game of Thrones, The Office, they've all got several podcasts out there analysing all types of different things. But there's not many out there for the little guy, and that's what I'm trying to highlight. So each week I will go through a different show, different seasons, different episodes, and I will go across all different kinds of genres and different countries to bring you what I believe is some of the best TV out there. So I'm glad you're here with me. I'm glad you're here for this journey. And if you've watched the shows before and you wanted to come here and get an analysis on them and have someone go through them and pick out bits that you might have enjoyed, then I'm glad you are here. If, however, you have never watched the show and you just want to come and have someone talk in your ear about different TV shows, I'm glad you are here. But I hope that it inspires some people to go and seek out these TV shows. They deserve to be watched. They were made with love and care, and they are the same as this podcast, made with love and care. I am your host, Mike, and I will take you through every adventure, every horror, every piece of drama, and I hope that you enjoy the show. Hello there, and welcome back to this A Million Little TV Shows podcast. This is now episode 2 of season 12, and today we're going to be going into our first ever foreign language series. Now, I promised to do this 3 years ago when I actually started this podcast, because this show was the reason. I enjoyed it so much and I knew I wanted to cover it at some point, but I mean, it's been 3 years and it needed to be done. So, like I've said, I'm trying to fit in as many shows as possible and as, many different backgrounds as possible. So, this being a French series with, French language, it's certainly something different from what I've done before. It's also a period piece. Now, I haven't really covered many period pieces in this show. I think the only one would probably be Miracle Workers, and that was more of a comedy. This is a drama, but this is a very good show. And when I first saw this on the side of a bus and thought this looks really good. And then when I watched it, I was a little bit put off by the language at first, but I gave it a go and thought, you know what, this is excellent. And it really is. It's so well done. But today I'm going to be covering the show The Bonfire of Destiny, or Le Bazaar de la Charité, which again, I'm going to get murdered for by a certain someone that I know, but fuck it, I don't care. But yeah, so today I'm going to be covering this show, and it's just incredibly acted, and it blew me away when I watched it. It made me want to watch more foreign language things like films and TV shows, so there are a few more that are coming. A lot of them are English language, but there are a few that aren't, and this is the start of that. So let's get into it anyway. So this is The Bonfire of Destiny. I'll stop with the French now because I'll only get myself into trouble. So this is, as I say, The Bonfire of Destiny, the mini-series, episodes 1 to 4. Episode 1, or Episode 1. I'm going to stop doing the French, and I'm not going to try to pronounce any of the names of the actors, just know that they're all fucking fantastic. I am obviously going to have to name the people in the show, because otherwise it's just going to be he and she, and I do enough of that anyway. So this particular program is set in France, in Paris, in 1897. And we meet 3 main characters, Adrienne, Rose, and Alice. Pretty simple names, thankfully. And that very night they will all be attending a bazaar, or a charity event. So as you can imagine, there's going to be a lot of fancy dresses, there's going to be a lot of activities there, and there is going to be a lot of money flowing around. because after all, this is a charity event. So, we'll start with Adrian. Adrian is married to Mark Anthony. However, Mark Anthony has found out that his wife wants a divorce. He is a volatile, manipulative, angry man. He seems to be a fair bit older than she is, and so we can imagine that he's compensating, because there are a lot of younger men that would like his wife. For instance, the one that she is currently hooked up with. She is having an affair, but she didn't know Mark Anthony knew until the point when he spoke to his lawyer, and his lawyer told him that she is seeking a divorce. He threatens Adrienne, and then he takes her daughter away from her. It's their daughter, but we all know that the mother is going to be more engaged with that child than the father is, especially at that time of life. He is a very rich man and is about to be president of the Senate, or at least he is a candidate for such a role. He essentially bullies her, gives her some money and tells her to make nice. Basically, go to this charity event tonight, spend a bunch of money, show your face, and make sure that people know that you are my wife. Make sure that people understand that any rumour going around that you are looking for a divorce is null and void. And then maybe they can discuss whether she will see her daughter Camille again. But for now, Camille is going off to a private school and only he knows where. We then head over to the event. We meet Alice and Rose. Alice is a young lady, maybe late teens, and she is just enjoying her life as it is. She comes from a good background, fairly rich background, and she also has a servant with her, Rose. Now, I say servant, more like a handmaiden, but it's kind of a similar vein. But it seems that they are good friends as well. While walking around, Alice bumps into a friend and her son, Thomas. They begin talking, but Thomas interrupts and says that he wants to go to the cinema that is set up. Alice says that she will take him if his mother takes over her place at a certain stall. She is meant to be selling goods while she is there, and she doesn't really want to do it. She doesn't want the responsibility, mainly because her beau Julian is going to be there, and she wants to hang out with him. This friend agrees, and Alice takes Thomas and Rose to the cinema. But due to the fact that Rose is the hired help in this scenario, it's more like that Rose is looking after the child, while Alice is off with Julian, doing the usual teenage thing, making out, stuff like that. However, partway through, they hear a noise, and all of a sudden, there is panic from the staff. Looking through at the camera, it seems that the camera is now set on fire. At this point, it seems to be an easy task. It's not too big of a fire, and they can probably just start to just water it down. It shouldn't be too difficult. However, the fire starts to spread. It starts to become out of control, and people start to panic a bit more. Rose takes Thomas outside and leaves him with a friend. She then comes back in to try and find his mother and Alice. She tells the mother to leave as soon as possible because Thomas is outside, but also there is a problem. She goes to find Alice, and just before she can, all hell breaks loose. The fire is now very much out of control. And the main problem with this building that they are in is the doors are revolving doors. Now, as you know, if you've ever been in a revolving door, they aren't exactly the most efficient way to get through a door. And of course, these aren't motorized, so as soon as someone pushes it too hard and it hits the back of someone else, the whole thing stops. And with the panic that was going on, that was probably all that was happening. People were trying to escape, pushing the door too hard, ended up blocking the way and trapping people within. Eventually, too much pressure on the door ends up meaning that it breaks. So there's only a few of these doors in the building, and one of them is where the fire is spreading rapidly. The women who were actually in that room end up catching fire and running through the building. Of course, this spreads more and more devastation because the dresses are so flammable. However, just before the fire started to spread, Adrienne had been in the building. She walked in, she walked around the building, she handed some money out as if it was going out of fashion, and it was all to make sure that people remembered that she was there. This way, when she sneaks out and goes and finds Hughes, her lover, she can't be accused of not being there because she was there. And they have ridden off into the night while all this devastation is happening. People are getting out of the building, but Alice and Rose and Julian are still stuck inside. And at this point, all seems lost because the doors are blocked and the ceiling is starting to crumble. It is so rapid how all of this works and how all of this happens. It is shockingly scary. And like I say, some of these women are getting caught up in the dresses, catching on fire and spreading the fire throughout the building. And so all three of them, Alice, Julian and Rose, all admit their fate. They know that they're done for and they fear the worst. However, the fire department arrive and they manage to knock in through the wall of the building, which had already started to happen before they even got there, and they then crawl through the gap. Once they see inside, it's something like they've never seen. And we're not talking modern day firemen, we're talking literally they've got a helmet on. That's really the distinction. They end up walking through the fire and eventually find the people. They start to take them out, but as they do, once again, fear strikes and people start running for the exit. Alice trips and Julian ends up walking over her. He doesn't even help his love up. He just walks straight over her and runs towards the exit. Rose sees that Alice has fallen and she tries to go back for her. However, Julian is in the way. But because he is in her way, she is in his. And he decides to essentially body slam her. I mean, I wouldn't say this guy can body slam fucking toast, but he body slams her into a pile of burning chairs. Alice obviously is devastated and she's lost her best friend. Then the ceiling starts to fall in and she is trapped. No one is coming back to get her out. This is it. However, earlier on in the evening, she bumped into a man, Victor. He was basically a pickpocket and essentially did just that. He picked her pocket, but then reveals that he had the watch that she had lost and gave it her back. He is still outside at this point and hears screaming from within and runs back inside. He manages to find Alice, he picks her up and he takes her out. There is a slow lingering shot just on the door of this place and it basically zooms out and you're expecting them to come out and it takes forever for them to get out. But eventually they do. And so finally everyone is out. However, we see Adrian come back. She looks at the devastation and she knows what to do. Everyone else is fearing the losses that they've got, but Adrian sees an opportunity. Her husband knows that she was going to be there, and therefore she can pretend that she's dead. She can go and find her daughter, and she can eventually just go and live on her own, or with her new partner, but she can get away from this. Alice is obviously devastated because she has lost Rose, and not only that, her partner Julian has betrayed her in such a devastating way. He essentially killed her friend and has left her behind to die, to save his own selfish skin. And Julian is now outside, thinking that he's got away with the whole thing. When Rose's partner runs up to him and asks where she is, he tells her he doesn't know. She was with Alice and he's not sure where they are. He knows that they're still inside, or at least he believes they are. So he's certainly got some comeuppance coming. But the man is an absolute fucking coward. As for Thomas, unfortunately, his mother died in the accident, along with around about 120 people, most of them women. Again, the flammable dresses didn't help, but also the amount of men that were in there that were scrambling to get out because their life was apparently more important than their wives or their girlfriends or their daughters or someone's daughter is shocking. And I wish I could say that 150 years later, well, 130 years later, things have got a lot better, but apparently fucking not. But anyway, let's see what happens in the aftermath. Episode 2. So, I think we'll start with Adrienne. Since the stories end up going off on their own tangents now, I think it's best to keep the stories within the main characters. She has now escaped her husband and she is coming up with a plan of how to actually get her daughter back. Her daughter's been sent off to school, but she knows that if there is a funeral for her, her daughter will be brought back for that funeral. So at this point she knows that she can potentially get hold of her daughter and then they can go on the run. And she will probably go with her lover, Hughes. He, however, wants her to stay in his apartment for now, just to keep her head down. But of course, she knows that she has to move quickly. And so she decides that she's going to go and sell her jewellery. It's the only thing that she has of any worth, and obviously any extra money that she gets will be a massive help for her right now in relocating. Plus the amount of jewellery that she's got on her will really help her out. It's not like her husband wasn't good for a few francs. So she ends up going to a local pawn shop. She speaks to the dealer and manages to get a fair enough price for the jewellery that she's given. And obviously him being a pawnbroker, he's always going to undercut. So he knows that she's desperate at this point. She's trying to get rid of jewellery just after he's literally taken in a shipment of jewellery because, well, a lot of rich people just died in a fire. So he's got a bit to spare. Basically what's happened is they've ended up going and robbing the morgue. So he has ended up with all this jewellery. Her husband, Mark Anthony, just doesn't want to accept his fate that his wife has died. But also her sister Matilda, who is Alice's mother, also doesn't want to accept the fact that her sister's dead. After all, her daughter has basically come back to life. Now, obviously we'll get to that, but she is very hopeful that her sister is still alive. However, after days and days of searching, there is no leads whatsoever as to where her sister is. They end up going to the morgue, and there are only a few bodies left in there. The rest have been claimed by family, but the ones that are left are essentially just charred remains at this point. The only thing that would give that away is any jewellery that was on them, but of course we know that the jewellery has been stolen now. And so the sister and the husband have to kind of just accept their fate. She isn't coming back, and they know as much now. Matilda ends up berating Mark Anthony for the way that he is, and the way that he treated his wife, her sister. And she tells him that she knew that her sister wanted away from him. She wanted a divorce, and she was very close to getting away from him. And it's such a shame that she's ended up in the situation she's ended up in. Of course, we know that she's okay. She's on the run, but she's okay. However, the police end up taking in the pawnbroker because, well, of course they do. A bunch of jewellery has been stolen from a bunch of dead bodies. Of course they're going to bring him in. And when they do, they find these freshly cleaned pieces. When he's asked if these pieces have come from the morgue, he tells them no. He gives them a description of a red-haired, tall woman that actually came in and sold these pieces to him. And they end up with a perfect sketch of what Adrienne looks like. So where she thinks she's got away with this, she's now got people on her trail. She's now got the police on her trail. And all they have to do is show that picture to her husband, and he's going to spot exactly that his wife is still alive. Alice, however, is missing for the first part of this episode. Her father and Rose's husband have gone out looking for her, both Alice and Rose. But after they come back after going to the hospitals, they manage to find out from Matilda that Alice is actually alive. She's back home now and she's fine. However, when Jean, Rose's husband, asks about his wife, he's told, "We have no answers." He doesn't want to give up the ghost and he wants to continue looking for her, but right now, things aren't looking great. Now that Alice is back, Julien wants to see her again. But of course, she doesn't want to see him. She tells her father exactly what he did on that night. And her father essentially tells her, look, keep that to yourself. You and him are meant to be getting married. You and him are meant to be together. Just don't think about it too much. And in the coming days, we can talk more. But she absolutely does not want to see Julien. And her father tells her, whatever you do, don't mention any of this to your mother. After a day or so, Alice heads over to the hospital with Jean. And once they get there, Alice actually sees the man who saved her life. This man, Victor, is coming out of the hospital, but he believes that he's going to get caught by the police. So he makes some excuses and he manages to dodge the police. With the unwitting help of Alice, we can see that there is something there for her. She has a bit of a crush on this guy. Obviously, he saved her life, so, it's not like she owes him anything, but she seems interested. Let's just say that. But he runs off. She tells him where to meet her the next day, and he turns up. They manage to talk, and he tells her, you're into me. I can see it, you're into me. And I like you. But of course, they're of different standing. He's a common thief, and she's virtually nobility. They can't just run away together. But because of everything around the fire, we realise why he was actually at that event when he stole her watch. He goes and finds his friend who was there with him, and he essentially berates him. It turns out that there was a small explosion at the charity event, and they were there at that time to set it off. They're part of a militia by the looks of things, and they are trying to bring the aristocracy back under control. It's a revolution of sorts. And so he's starting to feel guilty for the fact that he's ended up killing a lot of people, and now the police are on their trail. Alice goes home and she ends up seeing Julien. He tries to speak to her, but she isn't interested. Obviously, she knows exactly what he did. He threw her friend into the fire. He left her for dead. He was a coward. And when her mother comes back from the morgue, because she's obviously gone to try and see her sister, she's devastated. Alice goes to speak to her mother, but Julian comes with her, and essentially Alice berates him in front of her family. She ends up slapping him, and her father is apologetic towards him. Like, he doesn't back his daughter, he doesn't care that his wife's sister's died, he just wants to make sure that their standing in the community is as it was. He says earlier in the episode that Alice and Julian need to marry because, well, there are issues. So we can only assume that there's financial issues and that he's marrying his daughter off to bring families together so they can have money. And then we see a woman, right at the beginning of the episode, brought in on a gurney. She is covered in bandages, and when she is transferred to the bed, you can see that she is badly burnt. Another woman, Madame Huchon, comes in, and this madam mistakes this woman for her daughter. It's only after this woman says her name, Odette, that this woman tells her, I'm not Odette, I'm Rose. So yes, Rose is still alive, however she is badly burned, and she is obviously in not a good situation. The madam goes downstairs and actually ends up finding her daughter in the morgue. She takes her ring, and she comes back upstairs. At this point, Rose has been put to sleep, and the madam thinks quickly. She never wanted to lose her daughter, and thinks that she has a very good surrogate right here. She knows that this girl is going to end up scarred for the rest of her life, and she can kind of explain it away, that her daughter and this woman are the same person. All she has to do is convince Rose to be Odette, and she's golden. She thinks she can do that with the amount of money she's got, so she's going to take her. She asks if she can take her daughter home, and she ends up giving her the ring that she actually took off her own dead daughter. She then replaces a piece of jewellery from Rose and puts it on her daughter's body so that everyone thinks that Rose is dead. So now we've got two fake deaths. Rose is taken home and put in bed. She then hears a little familiar voice because Thomas is the grandson of the madam and therefore the son of Odette. So now the woman who took him out of there, out of the charity event, is the one who is being faked as his mother. Of course, she's still covered in bandages, she's still in a bad way. She's on morphine, and she has a nurse that comes in to see her every now and again. But mainly, it's this madam that is looking after her. But every time that Rose gets out of line, the madam just gives her more morphine and makes her go to sleep. She tells everyone that she's hysterical because of what happened, but she is essentially going to play this off as her daughter is still alive and Rose died. All for what we don't know yet. Episode 3. So we'll pick up with Rose once again. The fact that she is now being essentially kidnapped by this woman. But the madam, it seems, has other issues. We see her in one scene where she ends up coughing up blood, and we can only assume that she's not got long left. Maybe that is why she's doing this. But of course, Rose cannot understand this. All she knows is that she is being kept away from the love of her life, her husband, and she wants to just go back to him. And so one morning she manages to. She sees that the madame has fallen asleep and she takes the key and tries to run. However, when she gets to the door, she's met by the madame's husband. She wants to go, she wants to leave, and she yells it from the rooftops, I'm not Odette. Please let me go home. I just want to go home. She tears off the bandages to prove that she is not Odette. But of course, the scarring on her face is so bad. She's never even seen her face since the accident. And it's here she gets the first glimpse in weeks, by the looks of things. She looks into the mirror and sees this terrible sight looking back at her. Essentially, she looks a bit like Harvey Dent. Her face is really badly burnt. Her body ends up being really badly burnt as well. We see that later on in the episode because she has to start coming to terms with who she is now. Whether she leaves this place or not, she hasn't really come to terms with who she is. Like I say, she is taken back to her room and she strips off. She takes every strap of clothing off and looks at herself in the mirror, and she cannot believe what is staring back. When Julien did what he did, he really fucking did a number on her. This poor woman is now, I'd say 40% of her body is burnt, and so she decides to come to a compromise. She has spoken to the madame, and the madame has told her, look, all I want is you here to look after my grandson. It seems that there is some very greedy people in her family, and she knows that if she doesn't look after her grandson, nobody else will. And even though there seems some sort of malice towards the way that she's treating Rose right now, there really isn't. She just knows that she is at the end of her life and knows that someone has to look after her grandson, and she would prefer it if it was her daughter. But of course, her daughter is being buried. In fact, that very day, her daughter is being buried. Because let's not forget that Alice's family is the one who thinks that Odette is still alive and Rose is gone. So they end up burying Odette thinking it's Rose. And so now it seems that Rose has decided that she's going to stay. And this is solidified when Alice actually comes to see her, because Alice essentially looks straight through her. Rose thinks Alice will see who she is. All this time in her company, all this time being her friend, being the person that was her confidant, she feels like if anyone can see me, it's gonna be Alice. But Alice looks at her and all she sees is Odette. Whether it's the fact that she's not looking hard enough or the fact that she believes her friend is dead, and this is exactly Odette that she is looking at, she just doesn't see the person that she's been living with for so long. Maybe the scarring throws her off. Or maybe it's the fact that she has always seen Rose as just her handmaiden. I feel that that isn't the case, but I feel you've also got to look at that side of it as well. But Rose decides to stay. She's going to do what the madam wants, and eventually she will end up taking over what the madame leaves. So she's going to be rich beyond her wildest dreams, and then potentially she can bring her husband back in, and maybe even have a son there as well. Because of course she has Thomas, who is Odette's child, and she is there to look after him. But she manages also to send something out, and hopefully it will get to Jean, and he will understand and he will come looking for her, and maybe they can work something out to stay where they are. Alice seems to be having a really tough time with everything that's going on around her. With the fact that she has to marry Julien, she obviously doesn't want to. She is really digging her heels in about this, which is pissing off her father and her mother. We don't know of the problems that they have, but we can see that they're probably going to be financial. He has essentially said that if nothing happens with this marriage, then the family is done. And so to keep on the good graces of her father, she decides that she's just going to suck it up and do what is needed. And so she tells her parents that the marriage will happen and that she apologises to Julien for the way that she has been acting over the last few days, weeks, whatever it's been since the fire. But she knows what she really wants. What she really, really wants. Sorry, that's a Spice Girls thing. But she knows what she wants. And she heads off to go and meet up with Victor. Now, Victor is in trouble of his own. As we know, there was a bomb set at the actual charity event, and he has been implicated in this. There are pictures going around town of him, and the police are on to him. They are constantly tracking him down, and the lead investigator is hot on his heels. However, when the investigator goes to see him and asks where he was and what he was doing in that event, he tells him he was just pickpocketing people. He shouldn't have been there, but, you know, he got caught up in something. But he's not a terrorist. He's not someone who's decided to blow things up. There was no bomb. He didn't do anything wrong. And I mean, there's very little evidence that he has done anything wrong. But if he ends up being linked to this group that have been going against the system, he could be implicated in this crime and could end up going away for a very long time. In fact, well, he won't. He's going to get his head cut off if he's found guilty. So he tries to see Alice because he's essentially said, I was at the fire because I was saving people, I was helping people out. And technically he's not wrong. He did help Alice out. And it would obviously help if Alice could come and speak to the police and say, yes, he was there, yes, he helped me out. But of course, all he needs is one of the other people in the group to turn on him, and he could end up going away for this, or could end up dying for this. And so when he goes to see Alice, she tells him, look, I can't see you anymore. We can't keep seeing each other like this, but he perseveres. He comes back the next day to see her when she's out on a ride, and this is after the whole marriage debacle. She takes his hand and she takes him into this cavernous structure on the property, and they end up having sex. And it would seem that this is the first time that Alice has ever had sex. And now we'll go to Adrian. Adrian finds out that her lover has actually been touted for a new job, which he has accepted. This guy is in the media, and he's essentially been writing stories about the charity fire. And so since he's done such good work, they want to promote him, and they have done just that. But that means that he's going to have to stay in Paris. Whereas Adrienne wants to get out as soon as possible. She wants her daughter, and then she wants to go, potentially to London. She goes over to her old house, knowing that her body lies in state there, or at least a body. And she leaves a note for her daughter out in the gardens, knowing that her daughter will be the only one that goes out there. However, before she leaves, she actually sees her daughter for the first time in, again, I don't know how long it's been, a couple of days, couple of weeks. And she knows that her daughter won't say anything to her father because, well, she absolutely hates her father. In fact, the daughter, Camille, says that she wished she died in the fire with her mother, just so that they could be together, which is heartbreaking. I think the kid looks about 8, and she is broken by this. Of course she is. She's lost a mum and she's with a dad who's a piece of shit, basically. Camille reads the letter the next day and knows that she is going to be with her mother very soon. But when Adrienne gets back to her apartment, she finds out that the money that she has been storing up, the money that she got from all the jewellery that she pawned, has now gone. It would seem that one of the kids who has been helping her out get rid of this jewellery has actually come back and stolen it from her. Or at least that's what she is led to believe. And so now they can't do anything. She's going to be picking up her daughter in 3 or 4 days, and they have nowhere to go. They have no money to do anything. They can't get out of Paris. And this is going to be dangerous for her, and dangerous for her daughter. There are only a few people that she could probably turn to in this time of crisis, but one of them is her sister. And of course, her sister thinks that she's dead, as well as Rose. So she's not got a lot of options right now. Episode 4. So, after Alice and Victor have ended up having sex, she's now come home. She has got this marriage coming up, and obviously her father wants her to focus on that. So does her mother, in all fairness. And of course, when she sees the paper, there is an article in there regarding Victor. They are on the lookout for this man now because they believe that he is the one who created this disaster. Of course, the family are disgusted by this man because, well, they believe that they've lost 2 people in this fire. Both Adrienne and Rose are potentially dead, according to everyone in the family. But of course, this comes as a shock to Alice because all she knows is that he was there to help her out. He saved her. And since then, she has not only garnered feelings for him, but has now slept with him. And as for Victor, the reason that he hasn't actually been arrested is, well, it seems that his mother and the lead officer on this case have a bit of a problem, or have a bit of a past. Victor was left in the streets when his mother was taken out of the city. Essentially, it seems like the police officer involved has had her deported, and so now Victor has spent the last 15 years raising himself on the streets of Paris. He resents the officer, but the officer seems to be feeling guilty for what he's done. So he didn't arrest him to sort of make amends by the looks of things. But he does warn him the next time that he sees him, he's going to have to arrest him. He basically tells him to keep his head down, and hopefully more will come out. Alice tries to distance herself from Victor after she finds out what's happened. He sends her a note saying that he hasn't done any wrong and that he wants to see her, but she now needs to distance herself from it. She's getting married, and she has to save her own family, because, as we find out from Alice's mother, her husband August has made some really bad investments over time, and he's now paying for them. That's why Alice is in the situation that she's in, and having to marry Julien, because that's the only option they've got now. But after waiting for so long, Victor decides that he's going to go and try and see Alice. He turns up at her house and essentially breaks in. He gets into the room and just says, "It wasn't me. I didn't do this. I wouldn't have risked myself to come back for you if I'd have done this. I'd have run. And I certainly wouldn't be stood in your bedroom right now, knowing that if I get caught, I'm going to be killed. So I haven't done this. I can promise you that." Just as things start to get hot and heavy between the two of them, they get interrupted. Alice's father basically tells him to get out and for him to never be seen again. He threatens Alice and says, "You need to start buckling down, basically, and you need to start thinking about your marriage, because in 2 days you will be married and that will be it. None of this playing around, nothing to do with that man being in this room. This is it." He wants her to step up. he should really step up as a fucking father, but that's neither here nor there. Rose is now getting used to life where she is. However, when she wakes up in the morning, she finds Thomas in her room. He is sat with a toy that he was given by Rose just before the fire, and he tells her that he knows who she is. He knows that it's not his mother, and he doesn't raise an alarm, he doesn't alert anyone, he just tells her, I know who you are. Later on in the episode, they actually manage to talk, and she says, if you know who I am, will you allow me to stay? He asks some questions about his mother and finds out that they never actually found the body. Of course, we know that they did because we know that his grandmother ended up giving her some jewellery from that body. But they sit and they chat and they manage to come up with a plan. Rose is going to stay there, she's going to look after him, and she's going to pretend to be Odette. And it seems as if Odette's husband is coming home. So now, once he gets back, she also has to convince her husband that she is who she says she is. Of course, he's probably going to turn up from the sounds of the man and reject her because of what she looks like now. But also that doesn't seem to be the only reason she's going to end up being rejected by him. We discover in the episode that Rose is actually pregnant. And of course, it's Jean's baby. He must have got her pregnant before the fire and... Well, obviously he got her pregnant before the fire, what a fucking stupid thing to say. But he must have got her pregnant within the last few months. Then the fire happened, the whole mess happened, and she is nowhere to be seen. So now she's going to have to pull this off as well. She has to pretend to be someone else's wife, someone else's mother, and now she's going to have to try and get pregnant with this man. She's going to have to cheat on her own husband to live the life that she's now living. It's either that or, as the madame suggests, getting an abortion, but this is the 1890s. Can't imagine that it's fucking great back then. I imagine it's sort of a coat hanger job. So this is a scary time for her. And then we'll talk about Adrienne. So, as we know, she has made contact with her daughter Camille. Camille is just waiting for this day. She asks one of the servants whether they will take her to the park in a day or two's time. And when Camille actually speaks to her father, he does tell her that he misses her mother. He misses her voice and he also misses her smell. And that is a pivotal point later on in this episode, because Adrienne manages to track down the child that actually stole the money from her. However, the money is gone. Of course it is. And so she comes up with a plan. She's going to break into her old house and rob the place. Or at least rob as much out of the safe as possible. But by now, Hughes has actually been speaking to the police, because the police obviously have this sketch, and now Hughes is actually an editor at the local paper, and so he can obviously start distributing this picture out, which would obviously cause a lot of problems for him anyway, because she is living with him at this point. This artist rendition is essentially the woman who was stealing from the graves of the dead victims of this fire, and so she really should have kept her head down this whole time, but she hasn't. And now it's coming back to bite her in the ass. She could have just took some time away, and she didn't. There were probably other ways to manage to get Camille back to her, and she's ended up choosing one that has endangered not only her, but the man she loves, and probably her daughter in the end. Adrienne also goes and sees her sister. Obviously, like I said, she needs money, and that is the first place that she turns. Her sister again thinks that Adrienne was dead, her sister being Alice's mother, let's not forget. So when she does, she understands why Adrienne has done what she's done and forgives her for it, but she's still a little bit bitter that Adrienne didn't say a word. But she understands that Mark Antony is a horrible man and that her sister really needed to get away from him. And after she finds out that her sister doesn't have any money and that's why they're marrying off Alice, this is when she comes up with the plan to break in and get the money. However, now she has been spotted by the police. They follow her to the house and they see that she is robbing the place. And this is where that scent comes into it, because eventually when Mark Antony discovers that his safe has been broken into, he smells something familiar in the room. He smells his wife's scent. And so now he's got a good lead that his wife is still alive. But the big day arrives and Adrienne manages to meet up with Camille in the park. She tells Camille to come with her, and as she does, just as they're about to leave the park, she spots the police. Again, they are following her, they know who she is. They know that it's Mark Anthony's wife. She tells Camille that Camille can't come with her. She's going to have to stay. She will be back for her. But right now, she has to run. And as she does, she runs out of the park, but ends up getting tackled by the police. And so now, we can only suspect what's going to happen. We'll find out in 2 episodes' time, I suppose. Okay, so there was a fucking good reason I wanted to watch this show, and this is it. This is so good. Like, literally, I saw this as a poster and thought, oh, that looks okay. And I've watched it now, and it is fucking brilliant. The acting throughout is great. The costumes are amazing. You feel like it is 19th century Paris. And the fucking fire, man. Jesus Christ. It was insane. It looked so good. I mean, okay, yeah, you can do a lot with special effects and all that kind of stuff, and I get it. I've done little bits in my lifetime, but it looked so good. And then these 3 stories of these women, these downtrodden women, is really affecting. Like, you've got one who's basically been put upon her whole life as a servant, and now she's been given the keys to the kingdom, but the kingdom means that she has to have these scars forever. She's never going to be able to do anything about them, but she can live in the lap of luxury for now. But that means being away from her husband. It's tragic. It really is. And it's all at the whims of this mad old woman who just wants to have her grandson looked after. And I mean, I say mad old woman, and then I say, oh, she's just looking after her grandson. It's like, it's crazy, crazy story. And then you've got Adrienne, who is desperate to get away from this maniacal fucking arsehole. He, looks really sinister throughout the whole run of this show. And then she ends up being split from her daughter. She wants to get her daughter back. And it's everything towards that goal of getting her daughter and then just leaving and getting out of there as soon as possible. But you know that there's more to come from this story. You know that now she's been discovered, that she's still alive by the police, no less. They're going to have questions. And like I say, I think Mark Anthony knows that she is alive as well. And then there's Alice, poor little Alice. Like, okay, yeah, she's like, it sucks because I don't like anything like that when it comes to arranged marriages and giving kids away because you can earn a bit of money out of a deal. Women shouldn't be there for a brokering chip. As far as I'm concerned, most of them should be fucking setting the rules, not being brought to the table as a bargaining chip. It's fucking ridiculous. But obviously, it was a different time, and I don't think that's ever an excuse. I really don't. But yeah, this is incredible. Watching the struggles of these people trying to build a better life for themselves, but having such adversity thrown at them at all ways. It's great. And I've said before, the French language, the barrier, I don't think there is one. I mean, the subtitles are great, and yeah, okay, I'm reading subtitles. Big whoop. I'm not going to know the fucking Japanese language as well as I probably should since I was there, and was studying it before I went. But, I'm not going to know German, I'm not going to know Spanish as well as I should. I've also studied that. But I'm not going to know Italian as well. So I'm going to be covering shows in those languages. So I'm going to need subtitles at some point. But yeah, this is really well done. The acting in it makes you feel like, even if there weren't subtitles, you'd kind of know roughly what was going on and the emotions that these people are going through. And that's all you need, really. If someone can emote well, you don't need the words. It's just really good art. Anyway, I'm done rambling about this show. Not fully, but I'm done rambling for now about this show. And I will be back to it, like I say, in 2 weeks. But for today, I am done. So, thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for liking, sharing, subscribing, all that fucking good shit. But until next time, I will speak to you soon. Bye. As always, thank you for listening to this podcast, and you could really help me and the podcast by giving a like, share, subscribe on all major platforms that you listen to podcasts on. As an independent podcaster, this will just help me exponentially when it comes to actually doing more things with this podcast. I truly do enjoy this, and I absolutely love revisiting these TV shows with you guys. So any engagement from you is always welcome, and I will try and listen to all of you when you give suggestions or just tell me what you think about the podcast. But once again, thank you for listening, and until next time, I will speak to you soon. Bye.